All right. Welcome to Java with Jimmy, y'all, except it's Java with Simone today, and we don't have Java, we have water. But I'm Simone Esteves. I am going to be looking at my notes just for this introduction, just to make sure I don't miss anything, because this brother deserves a proper introduction. And after that, I'll get into more of a one-on-one, a real conversation with Jimmy. So I'm Simone Esteves. I'm here today to help my friend Jimmy make space to share some of his story by answering the questions instead of asking the questions today. My participation in this conversation started, it came about on May 4th. Jimmy and I were on the stage prior to the start of TEDx Roxbury. Big shout out to that whole crew. And we were just talking in general about a thought he had about a TED talk that he could give himself, or a TEDx talk he could give himself. And so we chopped it up. And one of the topics that came up was that Jimmy was feeling like he had a talk to give about the fact that he is a Black man, that he loves God, that he is gay, that he was raised in the hood, and the intersectionality of all of that. Now, for the record, hosting and interviewing is not necessarily my area of expertise. I'm an educator. I'm not a journalist. So I hope y'all give me some grace, and I hope I do this man justice today. But this is not about me anyway. It's really about Jimmy, and Jimmy have an opportunity to tell his story. So let's get into this conversation with James Hills today. Jimmy is a lifelong Bostonian. He is a Boston Public Schools graduate. He's passionate about community building. He's passionate about community relations. He's passionate about community advocacy. He's worked in nonprofit work. He's worked in civic leadership. These are things people all know about him. More recently, people might refer to him as a self-made talk show host. Those are all really common things, but I've always thought of Jimmy as Big Bro. I met Jimmy back in, it was probably 1993, 1994.
God.
Yes, it was a very long time ago. Or as my 12-year-old would say, way back in the 1900s. He's very rude.
This is the baby, right?
The baby, of
yes.
course, yes. So we met back in either 93, 94. I was a tobacco peer leader at Bird Street Community Center. You don't have to laugh. But I was a tobacco peer leader, and I really thought I was doing big things for the community.
Y'all were.
Helping make sure that, we weren't getting addicted to tobacco. But here's Jimmy already around the way, already like doing this civic engagement, this community advocacy. And I know at that time, I didn't really understand what you did. I just knew if my peer leadership was a seedling, then you were already the tree, that you were already doing big things. And so I'm wondering, my introduction talked about all the things that people sort of already know about you that they can find online. But can we go back to 93? And can you talk about that work that you were doing a long time ago that folks might not know?
So back then I was at, and it's interesting, the years, I'm not sure if it was 93 or a little bit later, because I'm trying to align it when I left right before I went to the federal government. So it could be, but I was the director of the teen center at the Richards building at the Demick Community Health Center. And so when you hear who is now the sheriff, Steve Tompkins, when you hear Danella Clark, who is raising six figures and millions for the Boston Arts Academy Foundation, when you hear of Michelle Calderer, who's at Uncornered Boston, all of us started out with Jackie Jenkins Scott at Demick Community Health Center. And so I was the assistant director with who is now Dr. Gail Crump-Swaby. So it may have been later to think about it now, but I do remember you as younger. I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, I don't remember when I met you. It's been that long. And I remember you said to me at some meeting, something to the effect of, I've been around at like every, as you can remember, iteration of your life as a teen and 20s, you
absolutely.
and E getting married with children, and like it's and I just, you know, want to give you your flowers. You are always consistent, never have changed. If y'all know her well, you never have to wonder what she's thinking. Carlos is on, so he can speak to that a little bit. But yeah, I was a teen center director, and I often refer to, no matter what I do, I'm always going to be a youth worker at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a part of the foundation of the community work. That state-funded line item for smoking cessation, that now they're not doing that much with it.
Mm-hmm.
No peer leader programs, and so we won't go into that too much. So I'll behave.
But tell us more about, like, I feel like, again, like I said, people know you now as sort of a self-made talk show host. Java with Jimmy has really blown up, but you were really in the trenches, and you've been in the trenches for some time. And so, like, I just understood that you were doing work to advocate for our communities, advocate for our people in ways that I needed to learn from. And actually, I'll hold off and I'll move forward a little bit.
Okay.
And I think you might get to this with this next question. So in addition to all these other things that people can find about you online, another thing that people can find about you online is that Boston Magazine has identified you as one of the most influential Bostonians in 2024. They said that Jimmy is no longer a hidden gem. They also identified you as one of the most influential Bostonians in 2023. And maybe you can talk a little bit about your path to being acknowledged as one of these most influential Bostonians. And for me, it starts way back then.
Yeah.
And for some people, it might start in increments, getting closer and closer to today. So what does that time look like for you?
The time looks like, for me, the first thing I think I'm comfortable now saying is that I don't think a lot of people know me beyond 2020 when this platform started, to your point. And so I'll go back to my time as a peer educator in the Bromley Heath housing projects. It's the CAVE program where my auntie Maria was the dance instructor, and I would always raise my hand to do stuff. And that was my kind of original orientation. That program didn't last that long. But if my mother is on, I'm not sure. I wanted to be at first a secretary. I liked computers. I remember I didn't want toys on Christmas. I wanted a typewriter. You wouldn't remember this, but some of the old heads may remember ColecoVision.
Oh, I remember.
ColecoVision?
I do.
Oh, okay. So there was the video game, but I wanted the Atom computer. I didn't want the video game. And so I always wanted to serve and be like an organizer. And then I remember being in the projects, Bromley Heath housing projects, and I would write holiday performances and whatnot, and then adultism would kick in, and you know, the adults would come in and take over, and I wouldn't want to do it. My mother would be like, "You still going to do it?" And we did one performance, and so I think one of the most vivid memories of me advocating is a good friend of mine, my first crush, Kim Seals, who is now Kim Smith, with all due. She was my first crush. Orientation to 7 Minutes in Heaven back in the day and all that. Kim was it for me. Her brother was playing Russian roulette, and he succumbed to the game. I was 13 years old, and I wrote a poem, and it was entitled "Why Did Michael Have to Die?" And the local Miss Mildred Haley apartment sales always going to be Heath Street to me, with all due respect to Miss Haley. I think she would understand that. They had a newsletter, and somehow my aunt or someone got it in the newsletter.
The poem.
And I remember Michael and Kim's mother came to the house, and she hugged me and talked to me. And I that was my most vivid memory of being impactful in community. And from there, going to church. I remember, this is going back before 11. I want to say for some reason, I remember 8 to 11, but my grandmother had me at the church business meeting, some Baptist church out in Worcester, and they were talking about the next year, and there was nothing about young people. And so we all rallied up, and I was like, they need to do something for us. And so I wrote the note, and Linda Forbes, that lives on Wambach Street at that time, across from Pleasant Hill Baptist Church, 155 Humboldt Ave, we made her take the note up. And so my time, started there as a teenager. And one of the things I'm comfortable saying now, Simone, is I've put my time in. I count my time as a peer educator. That was at 11. I'm 52 years old. I've given 41 years to this city. And, there are opinions of what impact, levels of impact, how or whatever, but I got texts, I got inboxes that attest to not only the reason I believe that, people, I struggle with words like in the trenches, and being a credible voice, because it lends to some level of expertise or whatever. And I just coming up in ministry and seeing the things that at that time we didn't know were inequities. We didn't know about social determinants of health. Seeing those things growing up really informed what I'm able to speak to now, on the platform. So if you see me referring or pointing over there, the tech setup is over there. So just so y'all know.
Absolutely. I think it's, some people are not so fortunate to see their gifts so clearly, so young. And obviously yours were
I didn't see it at that age. I'll be honest with you.
Maybe you didn't see it, but you were activating them, even if you didn't know what you were activating.
We'll go with that. I'm also doing better at not this thing of false humility and whatnot. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
I'm doing good.
So I'm going to go back. I'm going to take us back to the stage at RCC.
Yep.
And I'm going to say, I'm going to preface, I'm going to say two things, one for myself and then one that goes without, well, for myself, first and foremost, we're here to talk about your experience as a Black man, as a gay man in Boston, in inner city Boston. And so I just want to acknowledge that with respect to your experience, there might be times that I might not get the words right. And I would hope that you would, and I would hope that you would, readjust my language.
Yes, ma'am.
If that needs to happen.
Yes, ma'am. And with that, I just want to say that, and I said it to you, and I say to my friends jokingly, I'm out, but I have to give homage to people like Quincy Roberts and Curtis Santos, who have taught me a lot. And so though in the life and in the community, there are times where I have, there's someone who they are part of the trans community, and I refer to their birth gender one day in very sincere, and our conditioning, it's a thing of love. And I apologize. And they were like, no, just say the name or they, depending on the context of the sentence. And so I just want to name that because I want to give homage to them too, and also say that a lot of my evolving in equity among the so many subsets within the LGBTQ plus community, Quincy and Curtis have been huge parts of that.
Big shout out to Quincy and Curtis.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. But thank you for that, because that just shows kind of the integrity and why I have so much comfortability having this conversation with you. So we're good.
Good.
Yep.
One other thing I want to say that I know goes without saying with us, but I just want to name this for whoever's listening, is that, this is your story and your sharing, but this is your story. Don't feel inclined to share anything that if I ask something and you're like, that ain't for this platform, then that just ain't for this platform.
Absolutely.
And I know that goes without saying for us, but for y'all, he don't owe us anything.
If the camera was off, that's different, but the camera's on now.
He doesn't owe us anything. So you share what you want to share, don't share what you don't want to share. So I want to go back to the stage when we were at RCC. You were talking about the thought you had for giving a TED Talk. And the question that I asked you that I think prompted this conversation was, how long have you known you're gay?
Oh, God. So that, and you all will see me, I had oral surgery last week, and it just, the impact of that, take care of your teeth because it lends so much to your health. My sinuses are better. I can smell better. I can, what I can eat, I can taste better. And so, Simone, that's a loaded question. And I think we should also hold space that a lot of what I'm going to say tonight, depending on who's watching live, or if you're watching the afterwatch, there may be some things that may be triggering. And I always invite people, if so, to log off.
Mhm.
I'm going to say for you as a parent, as someone that loves me and knows community and may know other people in the community, if at any point you're like, James, oh, we got commercial breaks
Mm.
on the show. So
Mhm.
we can, you know, do those. Just tap me and we'll take a commercial break. And so I say that because I knew post memories or molestation.
Mm.
And I know some within my community might take issue with the statement I'm about to make. There is a notion that for some that are identified now struggling,
Mhm.
that in some cases, the open door or the orientation or the um, gate could be molestation.
Mm.
And so with that, I'll be honest too. It's hard to remember, and I'm going to go somewhere with this. It's hard to remember not being attracted to men, and I think the molestation switched an attraction to men that was pure in the fact that I didn't grow up with a father,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
so any older man, I had a cousin growing up that I would call him daddy from what my family told me and what, you know, he told me, and we joke about, you know, every now and then. And so, you know, the only thing I can say to you, Simone, is I remember walking down Morton Street. At that time, it was across from the Bradford, and I was skipping or doing something. And again, this thing of 8. Um, I was probably 8, 9, and I just knew I was different.
Mm.
I jumped doubles in elementary school. I remember one of the lunch mothers saying, I wanted to jump one day and she didn't want me to jump. And in that old school, sort of old black auntie, it was something about come on, girly boy, or don't want you in. I think her motive was pure, but you know, and that was elementary school.
Mhm.
And so, you know, you know, the molestation, you know, that was early around that time as well from, you know, older cousins. And so I'm not of that, you know, I've always known, and respect to everybody that that is their experience. I would say around maybe 8 or 9
Mm.
that I knew that it just I had an attraction to men. And I think when the molestation happened, that and there's, you know, I haven't done a lot of research, but there's a belief that, you know, um the sex of the molester, if it's same sex, that
Mm.
because that's your first initiation for sex,
Mhm.
sexual
Mhm.
assault, just to be clear. um you know, but I can't unequivocally, and this is real time talking to you.
Yeah.
I think it's if I had to give you an answer, it's 50-50. I think there was always something there in an attraction, and that may have I don't to answer your question about 8 or 9, but that's something that's parking lot for me, I think, to work out in my journal or therapy, because yeah, that piece about, you know, did the orientation happen from molestation, or was it there, and did it trigger, with all due respect to people to take issue with that, did that trigger it?
Mhm.
So about 8 or 9. It was definitely before tweens.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to come back to why I asked that
Yep.
question in a moment, but I want to follow up on 2 things you
Yep.
said. One, you know, as you talk about the lunch lady, you know, I
Mhm.
hear you as you're saying that, you know, she had, you know, she was doing her auntie thing in her way, but I just want to name, you know, where we are further along now,
Yeah.
and intent and impact are not the same, and maybe she was doing things with best interest,
Yeah.
but as we now need to think about how we're speaking to kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the things that the seeds that we're planting in kids and in kids' spirits, and we need to recognize our impact is not the same as our intent.
And I'm going to say something that may be controversial to the community as well. We need to, yes, teach equity.
Mm-hmm.
And what's a better word than tolerance? Equity and unconditional love, or
Acceptance.
acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Embracing.
Embracing and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance with a openness to, for whatever reason, parents who just
Mm-hmm.
don't have the skill set, don't want to, may have had their own
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
trauma.
Yep, absolutely.
We need to allow them space to object in a non-malicious
Mm-hmm.
way. And so and again, I'm atypical in about every space, that I'm in. And so I just need to hold space for that too. Nobody to be disrespectful on either side,
Mm-hmm.
but thank you for naming that intent versus impact. And I will also say that though we're in 2024, we'll probably get into it later. Some things are still interesting
Mm-hmm.
for little kids and oh god, it's yeah, because they have so much freedom now to be themselves, that doesn't stop the ridicule. As much
Yeah.
as we're in 2024, the rates of suicide and
Mm-hmm.
child, yeah. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. Sorry, this is
Absolutely.
your show.
No, 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 not at all. I'm a guest just sitting in the
No,
booth.
you're the
Yeah.
host. You see the flyer? It
Yeah.
said host Simone Esteves. It was supposed to be Anisha. I'm missing. It was supposed to say friend, because I wanted to really imply the comfortability with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask about, following up on what you were mentioning earlier, again, no shame
Yep.
to anyone. We are at a time in history where folks are developing skills and insights and things that we didn't have access to in previous generations, didn't
Mhm.
have the space to develop in previous generations. We are healing harms that
Mm.
go several generations back and come through our cells and our genes. But that being said, in terms of having been molested by a family member, were there adults that you could turn to for support, or is that something that you needed to manage on your own?
I had to manage it on my own. My mother found out I was out of high school, and I forgot what somebody called my house or something, and I called my mother in the room, and even till today, I use a term for my community that some would say is derogatory, but I'm part of it, and so I can use it, and so I'm very just casual, but not casual. But I called my mother in the room, and what I said to her was, I think I said something to the effect of, "Mom, I mess around with dudes, right?"
Mm.
Something like that, and I don't think it. Listen, Shirley Caesar had a song talking about no charge, where she talks about, for the 9 months I carried you, I don't care. And brothers that may listen to this now, your mothers know. They may not say anything, but they know. They carried you. They reared you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're a mother.
Mm-hmm.
This is after dark, so I can follow that up with shit. Sorry, Mom. And so I think she had an idea. But while it was happening, nah, it was attention,
Mm.
and so I remember one time I was forced. I had a cousin that I was coming from the store, and he had lured me down to what is now the Dearborn STEM.
Mm.
At that time, I think it was closed. Um, and he was like, "Oh, there's a dead rat or something." A little boy, I'm ill, but you still want to see it. And I remember he brought me down there, and at that time, and I honestly don't remember, because in going back, I remember things, but they may not be chronological.
Mm-hmm.
And so that day, I don't know if that was the first time, but and it may have been because I was pissed.
Mm.
I was hot. Oh, I'll give you, don't say nothing to Granny. I'll give you, it wasn't Connect Four. It was the thing where you got to put the little yellow pegs in the pop up,
Yeah,
the
I know.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other times now in my memory where playing, it was inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was the only time I said something. And I don't remember, I didn't tell my mother. And I don't remember what my grandmother's reaction was. But that was the only time where I articulated in the least bit anything that was going on. But nobody knew. And it wasn't that, I'm sure if I told my mother, she would do something. And I'll name this, and I've been open about it. My mother went through a period of being addicted to crack.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on the period, but I will say this about my mother, despite that, I'm sure if I told her, and when I did tell her that day, I named the cousin, but the cousin had the same name of my stepfather.
Mm.
So I don't know how long I had my poor mother thinking that it was him.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I don't remember when I clarified that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was clarified. But to go back to answer your question, no adults knew except the ones that were, and they all weren't older, and we can get into some point of that. But they were, a couple of the cousins were, a couple of years older. And then as you become a teenager, and that being your orientation, it then, I was a teenage boy,
Mm-hmm.
Preteen and teenage boy. So then, the curiosity, sort of kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
So
in retrospect, I mean, this is, I guess I'm asking you to make some assumptions, but in retrospect, was there some emotional impact on you then? Was there some support that as a child that you needed that you didn't get? As a Black boy in particular?
In relation to the molestation, or just in general?
In particular, in relation to the molestation. I'm thinking about those people who are listening who are parents now. Who
Okay. Okay. Got you. I know where you're going. I would say and I wish Carlos was here because he would give me some level of comfort. You understand this point because that's our boy. There's a little hesitance in saying that. Here's where the line of delineation is. On the molestation factor, boys who don't have relationships with older, safe, healthy relationships with older men, by my experience, can potentially be more prone to being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all want to walk circumspect, ninjas that be buying sneakers and because there was a situation in my family where the very, 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 very first time I heard that this youth worker bought this family member sneakers, red flag. Check. Family members like, no. And years later, guess what? I got to hold because they're still around and I still see them every now and then. So I got to hold that. And so to your point of maybe some tools for parents is if you're, and again, it's skating on the line of a young person that may feel that this is them away from molestation. If you got single mothers, if you got young boys that you're raising, and all of a sudden there is some extra attention from a family member or someone from trust your gut. If you got that, and I'm talking to all mothers and women, but I can only speak to my experience with a lot of Black mother women that I've been around. Y'all know how y'all are. Y'all got that gut. Ask them. And you also, if you do, and this goes more into my youth worker experience, but you also want to ask them in a manner and check with them where it doesn't feel that it's their fault. And also it's real for parents to consider shame where they've messed up. I'm sure my mother through the years has, on the molestation tip, has wondered, what did I see? What didn't I know? And so, trust your gut, pay attention to that ninja. And I got to be, with all due respect to our community, some women be messing with,
Yep.
little
Yep.
boys and little girls as well. And so, but in the context of this conversation, if you think that there is someone, period, that is messing with your child and you have a gut, or they're giving all of this extra attention, pay attention to that. But to the other part of your question, that emotional, I was more prone, and maybe a part of me, I don't want to say embrace, or, a part of me didn't report or tell, because I was getting that attention, and so yeah, that hopefully, parents got something out of that. And this is organic, because we were talking about parents. Something, the host in me is inclined to check the comments to make sure parents ain't asking questions, but
we'll get there.
Well, yes,
get there,
yes. Go ahead, Simone. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
This is about you.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll get to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
comments. Shifting over to your sexuality, and I don't know that it's possible to tease the two experience, the two apart, the experience of having been molested and the experience of being a gay
that's
man.
the conundrum, sis, that I think more in this conversation now than any point in my life. Because when I articulated it, I'm sensitive to folks that don't feel that that is a fair assessment. But I got to tell you, sis, in my years, there's a lot of people that feel that they're quote unquote this way because of what somebody did to them. There's stories of years later where nephews and neighborhood kids have went back and killed. So it to your point, it for me, this is about me and my combo, so we can, in this safe space, say with us, I haven't worked out if they are connected.
Yeah,
I'm working on that. But
there's a school of thought. I don't know if you're familiar with the National Seed Project, but I'm a seed facilitator, and so there's a framework in seed facilitation that talks about the scholarship of the self. I'm sorry, the scholarship of the shelf, which is basically books, texts, where you go to say, here is the here are the facts. And we often don't give we don't give enough value to the scholarship of the shelf. I'm sorry, of the self. What is our experience? And so
that's good.
I hear you as you're saying, like, you don't want to have a blanket statement of all people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. Maybe not everyone has experienced molestation, but you have. And so we're talking about your experience right now. And so, like, I just, I guess we're dealing with the scholarship of yourself, and maybe the scholarship of the shelf is a little bit different as it relates to everyone. But right now we're talking about you.
That was good.
Thank you. So with that in mind, I'm also wondering, just, as we talked about on the stage, what were your feelings like being a young boy who was maybe not clear, but certainly knew that you were gay in some way, or at least had some thinking that you were gay, and like, were you feeling like, I surely can go home and talk to my family about this and be like out on, I don't know if folks were using the term out then, but moving the language
that way.
Yeah.
I think that way, or oh God, that way. And because y'all got the letters, the queer and the letters, me growing up, I think gay has always been, but that way was sort of the term. So with the love that my grandparents and my mother, had for me, I believe. Is my mother on?
I mean, if she's not on, she could watch the video. So you either gonna say it or you're not gonna say it.
I got busted.
Okay.
Once.
Okay.
And I don't know if
Jimmy After Dark for real.
This is Jimmy After Dark. I got busted once. And you see my foot shaking, right?
I noticed. I was like, okay.
And so on the notion of, but that was a little bit after 8 or 9. That was a little bit older. Tell me the question again, because now my brain is going everywhere. Remembering that scenario of the door opening. Oh my God! Ask the question again.
Basically, did you feel comfortable being a little black boy who was gay?
No.
Okay.
More societal, which my presumption was that my family and those around me that love me were part of society. And so there was such a taboo of it that and people, people knew. Just like we got folks running around here today, one that demonstrates the stereotypical, you know, feminine behaviors on the men's side, or masculine behaviors on the woman's side. Um, but let's just also give credence to the fact that there are some with no behaviors that just a regular smegular. And but anyway, I don't want to go that deep. I nah, and I don't know, what the follow up is, but it was decades before I felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was in the mirror the other day, getting ready to go somewhere and do something, and it dawned on me. I said, though not perfect and a long way to go, a lot of the freedom and liberation that this generation is experiencing, woman, cis, Simone, it was nowhere.
Mm.
And he thought like the liberty and me saying got going. I don't even know if I put the banner up going across the screen about, being gay and whatnot. Like 20 years ago, nah, that would have never ever been. And I got to be fair to a extent to myself. I teens, probably 20s, and for the people that did come out and ask in certain cases, I probably can count on one or maybe two hands where I denied it. I didn't deny it. But I and till this day, like I went out in public
Wow.
with a rainbow shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2, 3, 4 years ago, 5, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out. If you remember, I was in a little entanglement, and they were posting pictures and all that other stuff. And so, that was some years ago. That was 7 years ago. So I'll say, 6, 7 years, you would never see me, with nothing with a rainbow in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but going back to your original question, I wasn't comfortable, um, like being out.
Yeah, and I think that that brings me again back to our conversation at RC. Wow, we there was so much packed into that little.
That's why I was like, yo, I literally cut her off. I was like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Let's make this a live convo.
Yeah, there was so much. Mm-hmm. But going back to that conversation, I think I said to you then, this isn't about me, but I have some feelings about the fact that, I've known you since I was 13, 14 years old, and I didn't know you were gay until recently. Again, none of my business, but I was thinking about the fact that, like, I felt like I could put all my stuff out there in front of you. Like, you knew who I was with, who I wasn't with, what was happening, what was going on. And it just seemed to me that there was some part of you that you needed to keep at home or keep someplace else or chose to, or whatever have
homosexual, you. When I was younger, I really thought that that's what that meant. They would only have sex at home.
Oh.
I mean, and then the second thought was, well, where else would you be having sex? But anyway, I'm behaving. It Simone, it was on the show this morning. I had talked about this, and I had asked people to put in the comments one word for them to describe how they think my mental health was and how I handled this. And folks have put conflict, stress. I forgot what my mother put. She put something. I was like, no. But it again, if I could go back in time and show, or if the old me and experience could speed up and get a glimpse of this and out, and I'm a Black gay male who loves God from the hood. Mm-hmm. And the pressure, oh God, the pressure of that was, and especially, I'm going to touch on this, and I think this is a subject or a show all in itself. Within, the church world, oh God, that was definitely in someone aspiring to ministry and whatnot. And I'm going to say this respectfully and be real. As much as it's prominent, out and not out, I still, no. It no. And I remember what finally caused me to be comfortable in my sexuality. Um, I was working at Brigham and Women's, and I was on break, and I remember seeing someone off to the side crying.
Mm.
Out of nowhere, I had the thought. I said, if Jesus was walking down the street right now and saw the person and said, you know, what's up? Oh, my partner is there in the hospital, and the family won't let me see them.
Mm.
And we got, a house together, and I don't have any legal rights. There was no reference to gender. This is a man that's crying.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the conversation, that man refers to his partner upstairs that Jesus was inquiring about. Why is he crying? He makes reference and let it be known to Christ that he's a same, as a pastor friend of mine uses the term, same gender loving person.
Mm-hmm.
Simone, immediately my first thought was Christ's first reaction wouldn't have been, you're sleeping with who?
Right.
There would have been compassion
Mm-hmm.
for this man's situation.
Absolutely.
And I'll just, because I grew up in it, intent versus impact.
Mm-hmm.
I get the intent of the holiness and the separate. And truth of the matter is, outside of marriage, any sexual activity is, according to that belief, now depending on what state you're in. So, anyway, that's a whole nother show in itself. But that was a world that I think was my top concern. And then there was the hood perspective. And as much as ninjas would use the F word, and then kind of stay the night,
Mm-hmm.
helping somebody move in a basement from the projects, they're moving out, and we're helping out. I get grabbed in the basement, and you'll hear this. I get pulled and get humped on. Remember the other night?
Mm.
That day, reference to remember the other night. But then there was also times out in the block,
Mm-hmm.
F word.
Mm-hmm.
So hood, definitely not. Church, definitely not. And family, just, I told my oldest I had a hickey. And I made a mistake, and I told my oldest sister, and everybody, where you get the hickey from? Because there was a day, Simone, that I was known for. Oh God, I'm high yellow, So I would, oh God, I would. It was bad. And my family would inquire, where you get the hickey from? And I said, I got so frustrated with my sister. I said, you don't know him. She kind of like, and again, family, they know, only, and again, dudes staying there. Obviously, you're not going to have girls staying the night as a young man, but the people know.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting back to your question, I never felt like safe divulging it publicly, period,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. Nah.
I'll tell you a thought that running through my mind as I'm hearing that story, and I'm,
Real time.
Far be it for me to assume I know someone else's experience, but when I hear things like you getting pulled in the basement, and then the next day, or later on the block, folks using the F word, it's making me think that person got some self-hate and they need to present in a certain way. Now, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I don't know. But I'm wondering, like, where emotionally, in terms of mental health, like, were there parts of you that felt some self-hate or some shame, or like what needed to, how did this impact you, that folks were fine engaging with you in one way in the dark, but in the light is something totally different?
In the time, not, this journey of mental health and awareness and stuff that we're on, in those years, it wasn't even a thought. I can't recollect through the lens of my mental health experience now. I'm going to be honest, and there isn't anything that blatantly stands out for me that I was cutting, or I mean, I smoked a little weed in there, but thank God for getting saved and whatnot. That kept me from some stuff. But to think about it, I can't pinpoint, outside of the stress of getting busted, outside of some, at that young age, heartbrokenness, because I was having crushes. Oh God, I would always have crushes on older, because there was that fatherly, and then just because of the molestation, it was in some cases it was just pure what's the term, bromance or man crush with no sexual, just I wish he was my father. And then there was some where I was like, hi daddy, and not biological father. But to look back, it there's nothing that I can point to that I can remember in a time that is our hardcore, depression. Well, in real time, when I said the word depression, my mother had a car accident, and they gave her Valiums and Motrin. Ma, you remember sometimes when your pills would disappear a little bit quicker than what they were supposed to? Oh, me, and that was a little bit of curiosity, teenage pill popping. But when I said the word depression, I remember at times with the intent of taking some of them things for the purpose of sleeping and just, and so there was a little bit often. There was the more being mad at the dudes that, because they were friends, and so it was being mad at them and disappointed, but not what I can identify experiencing. Not saying that I didn't, it could be blocked out or just, but I can't identify anything. And then at the time, now looking back and assessing, and it right now, I definitely probably oxymoron. Some depression, definitely. Okay, here we go. Real time anxiety around fear. Wow, Simone, this we have a little therapy session right now. Anxiety, fear, depression, no self-hate. That's one thing that either through God given, my grandmother, or I was, and it could be also, now I'm joking, the little high yellow pretty boy thing. Like I always like, maybe I look good. Yeah. And even when I had gained weight, and there's even a school of thought that, within the church world, that Christian homosexuals gain weight to make themselves unattractive. And when I heard that, I was like, at first I was like, and then I was like, did I? Because I always want to be attractive. And that was, I had gained it, because you remember I was a big boy. I was like 260. Whew, Jesus. And so, yeah, I guess I did wind up dealing with anxiety, depression, fear, kind of with anxiety at that time. But to name it, and I didn't know I was dealing, I couldn't name it and definitely articulate it to anyone anytime.
Excuse me. So you mentioned,
go ahead, take a break and drink your water, woman. I know you're the host. You need some more, drink some water. We can take a break if you need a break.
Nope, I'm good. I'm good. You mentioned the thought processes in the church. You mentioned experiences around the way, dudes around the way, family, being Black, complexion, all these things. And so that sort of brings me to this thought about intersectionality. Intersectionality is a theory that was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. It rounds about 1989, though it's really come into the lexicon more in the past 5-10 years.
I haven't heard that name in a long time. I think Consuela, Consuela Green? I think she's the one that hit me to her.
Yeah. Big shout out to Consuela, sending love. So Dr. Crenshaw explained intersectionality as a lens through which you can see where power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. She also explains it as the ways that multiple forms of inequality or disadvantage sometimes compound themselves and create obstacles that often are not understood among conventional ways of thinking. Do you think that the way that Dr. Crenshaw explained intersectionality aligns with your experience?
Oh God.
Does it deviate from your experience?
Oh God.
What do you think
it aligns perfectly. So one of the things that stood out was around power. And I don't know why that part of the definition resonated with me so much, but there is there is a dynamic that have multiple sub dynamics in them that come into play when you talk about being, first of all, I'm a Black man. Everything that comes with that, from white America, corporate America, um, generally speaking, what we deal with sisters, good, bad, and ugly, the impact of us as a gender and as Black men is not always caring for our Black women, caring for our children, everything that comes with that in general. And again, I know we're speaking to my experience, but I got everything that comes with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then, away from being Black, I love Jesus, because I want to put this in priority. I love Jesus, and according to the tenets of the faith that I was raised in, first of all, any sex outside of marriage is wrong. And then definitely, being a homosexual or lesbian, you definitely like going to hell. That just, so there's the anxiety and the fear that comes with that. And I'll be very honest and real with you. Do at least 2 or 3 times a year and y'all church will get this, quote unquote, the fear for my soul. If Jesus comes back, am I going to go back with him, or am I going to wake up in hell? Or I don't want to deviate from the intersectionality, but for church, for people that are raised in the things of God, the anxiety around where you're spending eternity, especially if you're Pentecostal apostolic, that is something that I don't think ever goes away. I know the church folk would be, that's still a little bit of the Holy Ghost in you. Fine, whatever, however you want to classify it. And so there's that, being loving God, and then to the next one of being gay, and the conflict of that based on the tenets of what I was raised in. Then I'm a Black young man or man in the hood, and everything that comes with that, violence and poverty and social determinants and all that other stuff.
Hypermasculinity.
So
sorry,
no, you're good. We're going to, I was going to bring that all back. And so all of those play themselves out in my life separately at different iterations in my life. However, there were multiple times, love you, Mom, where all that shit came together. You got your closeted, toxic, hyper masculine personality in the church that has a hood orientation. And so when they're either approaching you or whatever, or trying to check you, or on one hand telling you too feminine, if you're going to be around them or whatever, but then I know after you drop me off, you getting down, and so that played itself out in situations like that. And I was thinking about this, Simone, one of the easiest ways I think I can surmise my experience in intersectionality and how it's played out in life is in the Black community, and as a Black man, I'm not masculine enough. I'm gay. In the church community, I'm gay. In the gay community, so there's subsets. I'm not the most masculine thing in the world. I'm not a thug, but here's where the hood part comes up. I'm a project kid. So I may be gay, but I got a urban hood. I'm trying to, I'm still a ninja. And that's what I'm attracted to. But away from the attraction, there is within the community, because there's so much acceptance of femmes and studs and whatnot, I think sometimes this category of masculine for masculine is frowned upon. Like, you're not embracing who you really are. Nah, I'm a ninja that just happens to like other ninjas. you know, and so, and then in the hood, wow, I'm gay. And so, you know, those playing themselves out in the intersectionality of all of those, I think more recently, in understanding equality, in understanding systems, and in understanding systemic structures that are set up, first of all, for Black people not to win.
Mm.
And in the gay community, we just went through this whole reorg of the whole Boston Pride thing, and that committee got dissolved. And while Boston Pride for the People, shout out to my sister. Oh God, she's gonna kill me. I can see her face. I'm just drawing a blank. Doing well and whatnot. But I got to name some elements that, well, I don't want to get political. Boston's Office of LGBTQ Advancement, the foundation of it, work that was done for it before it was an office and someone operating in it, that was originally done by a Black man. For whatever reason, that Black man is no longer doing it. And for the city of Boston,
is he still with us? Because I don't think I know who it is.
I'll tell you who it. Well, people know who it was. Brother Quincy.
Oh, okay.
And I was a strong advocate for him to get that position. Like I've seen the boy do the work. He's had an impact on my evolution in this space. And it was a Black man. And whatever happened, he's not there no more. And he was replaced with a white woman. And there was some, you know, Tito, the chair of the Black Men and Boys Commission, I had, you know, shared some concerns with him. And I'll own that. Could the hall have a concern? Oh, that's James's boy, and he's, you know, wanting to know the process of what happened because that's his boy. Okay, I'll give you some credence to that. But I felt a Black man was done harm. I'm a commissioner, and I inquired. Long story short, and we'll move on from this real quick. It's unfortunate that after what we went through with the racists and the folks that used to do the parade, they didn't want to give space for equity and whatnot. And then we got Boston Pride for the People that have stepped up. Mayor Wu has stepped in and instituted this office, but we still got some actions of the chief of that office that are inequitable. I was supposed to get a phone call about the demo, and I've said this to her, and I've said it to the mayor. I've said it online. I said it to the mayor to her face, and I said it to the new director to her face. I don't have an issue with you personally. My issue is with the process and your demographic. We dissolved that committee with the parade for Boston Pride because of the white issues and whatnot. Now, the demographic of the person that's leading that office that replaced the Black man that did the work is now a white woman. I'm getting somewhere with this. My intersectionality of being a Black gay man to love Jesus, the only way this plays in here is I had not went and clapped old Jimmy some people like I used to, and I've wanted to, and I'm slightly doing it a little bit now to like answer the email and like, and so here of late, and there's a body that I'm a part of that with the individuals, I know they're allies, but often I felt the entity is an embracing of my full of who I am. And so this intersectionality, Simone, has only been, so I came out kind of in my 40s. I'm 52. I'm about 10 years in. And which I bet you, my phone just went off, and for some reason, why did I think that maybe Carlos sending me a text? You know what I mean? Checking in, telling us to do something.
Oh, he has.
Oh, yeah.
What up, Carlos? He has.
I love my brother. And when I tell you that you want to see an example of a real Black man who can love me, hear me, I've joked with him a little bit about, you know, some stuff, after dark stuff. And when I say unequivocally that brother is an ally, I don't think ally does. He's my brother. An ally is almost a disservice in this space for him. And so he called me, you know, we love you, Carlos. And so my point is the intersectionality. And I realized tonight that Um, the only space that where gay comes up, when I name those four components, um, is when I talk about Christ and
Mm.
and loving Jesus. In the Black community, let's keep it 100. As much as we're in 2024, um, there's still a large portion of our you got the whole um, and yes, should people who are straight have pride in their heterosexuality? Of course they should. Fine. But I had saw a picture on somebody's page once that I looked up to, and the picture was a depiction, um, a black family, image of a man, silhouette of a man, woman. You could see she had a bob,
Mm-hmm.
two kids on the side, and there was a black umbrella, and what was raining on the umbrella was a rainbow.
Mm.
And
Mm.
what it and and so even with what I said earlier, that I think parents and they should have the right of what let me say this, your children are going to get exposed one way or another, um, through media, through school, through the little boy that comes in with the princess dress on that
Mm.
nobody's going to say anything. They're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I do feel that parents should have some right, when, if they can, that exposure happens, to acceptance and
Mm-hmm.
embracing. But I sat here and realized that out of those, being black, my point was that generally within the black community, being a black gay man isn't fully accepted. Um, in the church, versus Christ.
Mm.
In the church, openly, in some spaces, we got affirming and churches and stuff now. That's fine. But and then what was the third category? Being gay. In like I mentioned a subset. Like there's some people that just oh, he's a straight boy. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I've had that before. When I used to go to the club, I didn't do all the participating in Vogue and all that other stuff. I'd get a Heineken, and at that time, we would sneak and smoke blunts in the club, and I'd be over by the speaker, and I'd be like I'm at a like that's who I am. But some people have an issue with that. And then the last category was, oh God, some will say, well, James, black in the hood is the same thing. No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
Um, and in the hood, it's there's a different element in the hood, because Simone, there are some hood dudes. There's there's some names in this city with which I will go to my grave with,
Mm-hmm.
that I've messed with.
Mm.
Um, and no, if anybody y'all, I ain't never gonna tell nothing. Um, and so the intersectionality of all four of those outside of Christ, and I gotta be very transparent that I know God loves me unconditionally. I know that, taking scripture, before I was formed in my mother's womb, he knew who I was. And when he called me, he knew, you know, um, who I was, and all of who I am. But I still, as I mentioned before, that anxiety based on the tenets of what I was raised to believe, either being celibate, or I guess, oh Jesus, need to eat. In a heterosexual life, again, according to those tenets, I still once in a while wonder about my soul.
Mm.
I know God loves me unequivocally. But again, in that lens and through that filter, so all outside of God, that's the only place that I feel like safe in. My community, loved ones and friends, the Java family, accepts me and who I am, but a lot of them were raised in the same tenets that I were.
Mm.
And I give homage, to a lot of the people of faith that come in and know I'm open about my orientation. Even tonight, I know they love me, but I know for them, the principle of which we taught might still be an issue for them, but they're here. So love is still, that was one of the tenets of, and I'll shut up. That was one of the tenets of the beginning of Java with Jimmy. Love is the foundational thing. And sometimes you have to practice tough love, and sometimes you have to love from a distance. And, to all the people of faith that may not, agree with the lifestyle, whatever, I appreciate and love that you're in the Java Cafe and you support and love me for who I am. So long answer to that last question.
No, I mean, it's deserving of a long answer.
It's been 52. Well, I'll say 40 years. Yeah. Well, the time of 44 years.
I'm in a space myself where I'm trying to, I feel like this is pretty common and maybe like cliche, but I'm really trying to give a lot of attention to little Simone, who still lives inside of me, and like loves little Simone in ways that she needed to be loved, or parent her ways that she wasn't parented. And rub some boo-boos and some real hurts that weren't rubbed. And so I just wonder, as if you think back to little Jimmy, teen Jimmy, early 20s Jimmy, like what are the things that the world either wasn't doing or couldn't do for all of those iterations of yourself inside that you may have to go back in time and like support yourself, love yourself, heal yourself?
I guess one of the someone asked me this. I think Tina Sherry did some months ago or a year or so ago. I did a podcast with her, and they asked me to write a letter, or what would I say, to little Jimmy, and I'll sort of take that approach. It's not your fault that you were raised without a father. It's not fair that older men, older cousins or whatever, and I got a name that I don't know what they, and we may have said this before. I don't know if they were victims of molestation, and the sort of suave, it stopped with me. But I would let him know that it wasn't his fault. I would also let him know that like he's unique, eclectic. And I guess one of the things that I could have had around me was someone that saw. I'm not saying my mother didn't see, but maybe she didn't. She had her own issues. She had 3 other girls she was raising and whatnot. And I wasn't, I was very opinionated, and oh God, I used to give my mother hell. Oh God. Yeah. Love you, Ma.
You were preparing to give the world hell.
Oh God.
And hell in a good way.
Right? Yeah, good trouble. But no, I gave her some bad trouble, Jesus. I remember one time I called myself dropping out of high school, and the only reason I was out for 2 weeks. 1 week was February vacation, and my mother couldn't get a day off of work to get me signed back in for a week. But someone early that saw what Bernard Bragg, my old pastor, saw in me when I started going there. I was someone, I do and I don't, because one of the things that Bishop Bragg taught me, and I think you'll appreciate this in this context, was everything that I've been through has got me to where I am today. We don't know what little boy, we don't know what 50-year-old thug is going to watch this. And I'm not saying feel comfortable, and it's weird because I still have a filter. I had to bring this subject up in a meeting the other day, and I found myself saying, oh, I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to turn everybody out and, bring a flag and everywhere. That's not the goal. But that 50-year-old who is drinking because he's attracted to a man, or is drinking because He, instead of being open to a relationship, he's out there just getting drunk. You're not using wisdom, so you're not using a condom, and then you're going, and God forbid if you got a girlfriend or not. And so if they're listening to this, there wouldn't be a this had I not been through 52 years of this. And I've been watching it. For some reason, YouTube, no matter what playlists I go on, in the middle of the night, in the morning, it ends up on church. And for the past few weeks, people have been talking about this notion. I didn't agree with it. I still struggle with it. But we've heard it's the struggles that build character. It's the issues of life that, show you who you really are. And my experience has been, I can give some credence to that.
But I'm beginning to reject that notion.
There's some things that aren't the struggles of life. Some things are just some bad decisions, we've made. But I say all that to say that, I've been, through these things for a reason. And I realize that, listen, my mother doesn't know this. She knows a little bit of it. I almost want to see who's on. There was a time in my life that I would leave the house late at night and go outside, walk around. And now I say it, but them dirty old men drive by, second, third time, ride by, roll the window down. And there was one time where that happened. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table. This dude had a Pepsi bottle with tin foil on it and a little white piece of something. Even want to try. I bring that up because, unfortunately, a lot of people who have been through my life experience aren't still here.
Right.
They're here, but they're addicted. And I got my own addictions, gummy bears. I smoke weed, certain seafood, I like to shop. But in all seriousness, there are people who have went through this and worse or less. And you understand the context of me saying less, and they're not here, or they're on psychopharm meds, or and with all respect and homage and prayers for and love for those people, and that's their experience and they're getting through it in their own way. I don't have a lot of those experiences. And so it does let me know that though hard and though a struggle, that this intersectionality, of being a Black man, loving God, being gay and in the hood, it's helped shape who I am. It's helped, as I was saying before, that intersectionality, I'm noticing it more at 52 in the foundational systemic structure within the shadiness of the chief at the city, within entities that, well, I'm not going to say that because that's going to indict that entity. So this intersectionality and some stuff tonight, Simone, I got to be honest with you. That piece where I started getting teary-eyed, that in each section, I don't feel, generally in a macro statement, I don't feel accepted. Black community being Black, Jesus Lord, a Black gay male. I'm very specific about that. And church, there's the organized religion, the church, and then there's God. Because I was about to say church and Christ are different, but some of the church folks, because the church is Christ's bride, and the church is Christ. And I ain't trying to piss nobody. I'm not trying to make any church folks mad. But in all four of those areas, there's none. There's no intersection of full acceptance in all four of those areas.
And you may have spoken to this, but I'm going to ask it even if it's redundant. I mean, we started by talking about me meeting you when I was 13 or 14 years old, and you already being in the work for this city, and I wouldn't even say for Boston, for Black people. You were already in it. And so like, I don't know, I'm like mad. Like what does it feel? What does it feel like? You give all of you to us, and then we collectively only take part of you in pockets, in silos.
That was
Like,
good. That was good. Because I was going to say before you asked that I get acceptance, but it's a little bit from Black, it's a little bit from gay, a little bit from the church, a little bit from the hood. It's disappointing. It's disheartening. But, and Carlos heard this term, I've integrated it. And what I mean by integrating it is I'm not a defeatist. Am I still going to fight for equity? Am I still going to speak up if I hear somebody using the F word, to a little kid or to whomever, I'm going to speak up and say something. So it's not integrating the disrespect. It's integrating that this is a reality. And for me, the sting of when this integrated reality demonstrates itself, if I integrate it, the impact isn't as hard. And I got this concept from one of my guests a couple of years ago, and it's sort of a going back to that last part of who I am in the hood. It is what it is, and I'm not going to stop fighting for equity and whatnot. And to your point, I sometimes feel disrespected, and sometimes I feel like, in some cases, where some of the pushback is because some ninjas think that I'm attracted to them or something.
The audacity of you. The audacity of them too.
Right. I know. Right. I know where he was like, dude, like, nah, I got standards. Like, shit. And so there's the petty, sort of that, like, really, bro, like, ain't nobody like, nah, no, not at all. To the fact of really, that's what you think, and there was a notion out a few years ago where there was some brothers promoting that if you were part of the community, you couldn't be a leader in the Black community. And I called them up and was like, really? And I forgot how the convo ended. And it's respectful and hospitable when we see each other, but the feeling of that I felt with the chief. I felt it with the entity that I mentioned. And I'll be honest. With the, having the rest and whatnot, I couldn't go to Pride. But if I could, for me, outside of supporting anybody, Blue, the Black Lesbian Gay, or Boston Lesbian Gay Urban Foundation, outside of supporting folks like them, there's no space for just a regular dude like me to go be comfortable with other dudes like me. You know what I mean? And so I just, and no, Miami is not where I go to, Brooklyn. When I lived in Brooklyn, Simone, Jesus Lord, that.
Look how your face lit up. Did you feel free in Brooklyn?
Brooklyn was free on a few levels. God is God, and He's going to see everything and know everything. But Brooklyn, for the first time in my life, you talk about, you knowing me. I in what I did sometimes, Simone, some of what I didn't do was because of people, and not in a bad way, disappointing people. I know for some folks, my embracing of who I fully am has disappointed them. I definitely, over the pulpit and all that, I never like dogged, and I told them kids don't be having sex, period. But that phone chiming off over there threw my train of thought off. But all in all, I'm the point I was making about Brooklyn. I'm happy it came to the thought I was trying to make, and that's how I got distracted, because Brooklyn was Brooklyn was. My mother told me that God brought me back to Boston to save my life.
Oh, say more. What does she mean by that?
Um, so I was in church. I wasn't smoking weed. I started smoking weed when I was in Brooklyn. I went to a club one night in Manhattan, and I was coming out the coat room, walking up the ramp. This little dude just like walked. Literally, Simone walked up and knocked my phone out my hand.
Oh,
I looked down, looked at him, and he walked up and got all in my face. What you gonna do? What you like? Ready to come to blows? And I'm like, for about 2 seconds.
now he was trying to holler.
Huh?
Was he trying to holler? That was the.
Hold
that
on,
was,
hold on. You got to hear the whole story.
Okay, all right. Sorry, my fault.
So knocks the phone out. He's all in my face, and for about 2 seconds, I'm backing up, picking up my phone, and he's like at me. And then the third second, I was like, I mean, it was just yo. I don't know if he did it to somebody before, or whatever, but that strategy worked. Long story short, we conversed, and wound up, instead of me taking the A train home, I let him drop me off. Smoked in the back of the that's when I started smoking weed again. And we started hanging out. And one day he asked me to ride over Jersey with him. I rode over to Jersey with him, and we pulled up to this field, like 4 fields, fenced in. We park, and I'm like, he was like, he's going to get some weed. So I'm thinking he's going to get like, ounce at the most. He was definitely about that life.
Oh, okay.
And when I had left, I went to Cornell Med to work. And the day that I wanted to put my hands around the supervisor's neck, I knew it was time for me to leave. I'm not violent. I don't put my hands on women. And when I imagined, I said, well, maybe if I put my arm this way over the screen and grab her.
Oh, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to go.
And he had knew that. And I was like, I'm going back to Boston. He was like, nah, come chill with me for 6 months. You ain't got to pay. You ain't got to do nothing. Just, help hold me down. And I know if I stayed, that would have been interesting. And so, to my mother's point, Brooklyn is where y'all know Java with Jimmy, but Carlos and them know. Jimmy was the alias, the one that would cuss you, or the other you. And so, now you got me thinking about Brooklyn and Old Boy.
Well, but I'm wondering about Old Boy because you seem happy when you talk about him. So, like, do you have that here? Do you have this? Do you have someone here?
Do I have who in Boston
that makes your face light up like that? Okay. or don't answer if you don't want to on the call, but your face lit up.
Boston don't breed them like that.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
And okay, what I mean by that is
true in general, but that's not
the ones that Boston does breed like that aren't out. And then some of the dudes that have wanting to get, they're not like my ideal. And I told somebody this is a former ex-thug, got some little reentry experience, but has come home and they're a yoga teacher and a life coach.
I so see that. I so see it.
And at any moment, because I'm like I've had 3 relationships, and I've told all 3 of them I'm complicated. And first one, second one was right after COVID, and I think they had chased me for 4 years.
Okay.
And then we reconnected, and I was like, and it was just something of like, when they let me know that, yo, I'm such and such from 4 years ago, and you don't remember all the times I was trying to, and I was like, again, post-COVID, I was like, and then the third one, that's the one that let me know we got some interesting neighbors. The third one was the one that, because I have a philosophy, 3 strikes and you're out. And that was my third one. And so now I'm like, I'm not even, every once in a while I'll pop on the dating app. The
3 strikes applies to you and love?
not me in love, but I'm like, yeah. Well, and geographical is a part of it. Like
Yeah, that's true.
Austin, don't
Yeah.
like Brooklyn, DC, Atlanta. Atlanta, you got to be a little bit careful. Because Atlanta, they'll start out, yo, what's good? Da, da, da. By the end of the night, after 2 or 3 drinks, hey girl, I don't. And again, never float your boat, do you? But that's not.
You like what you like.
I like what I like. Regular. Oh Jesus, this is about to really be after dark. I like regular ass dudes, just this regular smegular. Like I need to walk down the street and catch me like, yo, is that his boy? Is that his boy? That and that's just what I'm attracted to, and I no longer feel bad about it, and I don't feel that I should be shamed for it by those that don't. I respect the fact that if you like femme or you are femme, or you know or whatever, listen, because that again, it's interesting because the masculine for masculine subset is mostly dominated by, though not a large population, it's dominated by Black men. So that inequity is still even more microly, if you will, in a more minute or dense or concentrated manner, is still demonstrating itself. Because that is one subset that is frowned upon. That you think, you know, some people have issue with trans or whatever. Nah, male for male, because all of the other new embrace communities now, I think, view some of the male from masculine for masculine as not being your true authentic self. Nah, that is who I am. I'm not what I'm going to get in trouble.
I mean, it's interesting that people want to create a world where people can be free and then tell them how to be free in the world.
And and I got to be honest. I mentioned to I talk about Quincy and Curtis again. I'm a project homo, and I know I get in trouble. I say that, so that shows how comfortable I am with you, like, and how comfortable we've gotten here. And one, I'm not going to keep making it as long as I'm not disrespecting anybody and I'm embracing everyone. And I was going to say Quincy has been a part of that. There was a moment in my life where I had a little bit of struggle of fully embracing the trans community. And the more I learned, the more I got to know and been around. There's my favorite trans woman right now is Candace. She's a performer, and you know, the more I would hang out or whatever, for me, Simone, without a whole bunch of explanation, they got a heart, they breathe, and they're not doing anything malicious to people. They're human. So I'm starting to see people in their humanity. And just like I want to be regarded and respected for my liking masculine men, if you are trans or prefer trans, or you are femme or prefer femme, or on the other side, if you're a stud and like lipstick or whatever, do you, just don't hurt nobody and don't disrespect me for what I like.
Yeah.
And and I really embrace that fully sitting here with you right now, because I'm listen, I don't know if it's 52 approaching. I don't know if it's there is a part of me that is moving into the space of I don't give a I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not letting your weight weigh on me anymore. I'll if it's sincere and you know, Jimmy got to think about the platform or something, maybe I might listen, but all that other stuff and people's opinions and all that, I'm to the level of being a public figure, you got to have regard, you know, and want to engage people, yes, but the personal and your opinion on how I should live my life and nah, I'm in how I'm going somewhere else. How I flow and move. Ooh, I almost put my middle finger up there. We going. What time is it, Jesus? Oh, it's 8:30.
So
a little bit over.
Are we over?
Yeah, I was thinking 8, but we good.
I got okay. Oh,
go ahead. Go with what you gonna go. They still here. Oh God, they still here.
Oh, and there's comments. Look at that.
Yeah. You want to?
But wait. Okay. Let me.
Carlos. Okay. We'll go to Carlos because once we go to Carlos, that's going to ship stuff.
Right. So two things I'm thinking about. One is, again, I'm going back to this seed work as I'm listening to you talk about, how you have to show up in certain, or how people expect you to, and you're like, you know what, listen, I'm just gonna live my life. You're making me think of this concept of nests and cages, and what can be a nest and nurture
Mhm.
and grow a person in some context can be a cage. And so it seems like Boston in the hood in some ways has been a nest and helped you sort of, and has been a place where you can thrive in certain parts of your identity, and also has also been a cage in other parts where it's, you got to watch the brand. You can only, engage with certain people in certain ways. Your face lights up on Brooklyn, not on Boston. You know what I mean? Like, why are you back? And I don't want you to not be here, but why are you back?
I
Why
am.
are you here?
I cried. I cried for weeks. I almost fought my brother-in-law. I did not want to come back. I do believe that I agree with my mother to some extent, because of the nest and the caging of Boston. Um, when I got free,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Oh.
it was I didn't go buck wild, but Brooklyn was Brooklyn.
Mm.
It. I mean, whew,
It seems like
like
we need to have an off-camera conversation about Brooklyn.
this
Your
needed to be
family.
an invite on the
Yeah.
Brooklyn. I mean, Jamaican, broke back, as folks used to joke about, broke back Jamaican, Rasta, just hood, just regular, like dudes that some people would cross the street, walking down, and they would be like, yo, what's good? Hey, what's up, bro? What's good? Nah, what's good?
Mm. And you're like, oh, word.
Literally, like, and it just, yeah. I'm back because I got a little buck wild. I I called myself trying to be a player, and messed around, and that same dude, um is my mother still on? I had denied him. I knew
Mm.
what I was doing with him. I had denied him for a couple of months. Yeah. Um yeah, I had it. I needed to come back.
Okay.
That would have been a that would have been in the ratchery of
Let me ratchery.
ratchery
Let me
in the ratchery, like I don't know what would have happened, but there was something innate in me that just, I was like, okay, I got to go home.
Mm.
But I had a plan on going back, and I'll be honest with you. um the platform is, that viral video I did with my aunt, fell on Instagram, that got me national. BAA world stage, Museum of Science world stage. And so, you know, Boston is always going to be central to who I am. But my hope and dream is to be on a national stage, and that provides an opportunity, maybe, for either me to commute, or I told someone the other day, the bug of um, leaving Boston again is it's here.
Mm.
It's here. And I'll be honest. What's the young Sam J?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Oompa left or is leaving. Um, Others. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about a prophet is not welcomed in in their own country.
Mm.
And to a lot of people, and I started to put up a post the other day. Oh, that's just James is going to limit them.
Mm.
I'm not letting that limit me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be respectful. I'm not going to be too big headed and all that. But I I know in the next couple, and everybody, well, I was supposed to have a condo in Miami
Mm.
last year. I was supposed to buy a house in 22, condo in Miami last year, and then the whole housing thing hit
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, so that didn't work out. But I know I'm going to have some residence somewhere else, and yeah, I haven't been to Brooklyn since COVID.
Mm.
It was just because that was like such a central spot. but I might
I was about to say, I'm looking at your face. You about to be in Brooklyn in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
right there in Herald Square. Well, downtown Brooklyn, right by Dallas Barbecue. But nah, Brooklyn was I needed to come back. I needed to come back. Brooklyn was ooh. Exactly. When I walk you to the car, I'll tell you about other parts of Brooklyn.
I want to tell you a quick story. Again, not wanting to censor myself, but I want to tell you a story, and I wonder if there's any phase of your life that resonates with this story that I'm going to tell you. Okay. And I'm thinking about if there's a response you have to this story that any of us can take. Any of us who I don't think a person can identify themselves as an ally. I cannot say I'm an ally of the LGBTQ.
I see what you're meaning. Just like white allies.
Right.
It's a slippery slope.
Right. Like I wouldn't say, hey, this is Jimmy and I'm his friend. You know what I mean? Like you would say, hey, you would identify me as the friend. So I don't know how to.
I see what you mean. Okay, we got to take you out of the equation and just in general. Right. I get it because I'm sitting here like, but this is my girl, my sister friend, Simone.
Right, exactly.
And they would pick up that you're an ally. Like you, that's good. Right. You shouldn't have to say you're an ally.
I think if you saying you're an ally, then you probably are not. I think if someone else is not identifying,
I ain't got no coffee, but that justifies.
That's what I think. So all that to say, I guess I wanted to share this story for any of us who want to be supportive of people we love and know that we have fallen short in some way. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's any part of your experience that might speak to this. So, I've been an educator for all of my career. Yeah. And
peer educator.
right. Look at that.
All of my career. Yes. All right.
And so, in my very first class of students, I'm not going to name this person, because I'm just going to tell the stories in terms of my part of the story. But in my very first class of students, there was a young person who at some point came out. Now I worked at a school where there were openly gay people on faculty. We hung out with folks, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever have you, but we just did not talk about sexuality with the kids ever.
Yeah.
And at that time, I did not talk about sexuality with kids because I was just scared I was going to say something that was going to harm a kid.
Yep.
And I thought silence was better.
Okay.
Yep. So that's that, I've learned since then.
Yes, ma'am.
Fast forward. First of all, I'm old. So these people are grown now. Okay. So fast forward, I go out to dinner with one of these students, and this particular young person who was, I believe, the first person in that school to come out. And I said, I've learned so much over time, and I think I would have done things differently if I could do it over. But I'm so glad that you were the first person to come out because you were so confident and you were so strong and you were okay. Mm-hmm. And you were able to be there for the kids who came after you. Mm. And he said, I wasn't okay and I needed you to be better. And I was like, oh, never again. Like, I'll get it. I will say, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I want to be here to help. Yep. Whatever it is, I want to be here to be supportive. Mm-hmm. But that lesson, I will never forget. And I wonder if if you think back on any stage of your life, whether it's, Jimmy in your 40s, your 30s, your 20s, whatever, if you think of any of these communities, whether it's Black community, church community, hood community, male community, whatever it is, are there ways that folks were like, he's good. And you're like, but I wasn't though. And I needed you to be better for me. And I ask you this question because a person like you just seems so okay. You know, and even in this conversation, you're like, well, I was fine. I was okay. Yes, I had anxiety, but you know what I mean? And I think they could be like,
I'm going to say something that I know if Carlos is still on it, you might push back. I don't, when I say I don't have any other choice but to be, it's funny because with the oral surgery, I was mentioning that, I have I'm learning that in certain situations, I have either a high tolerance or a interesting response to anesthesia. And I think figuratively, I can it's not so much enduring pain. Most of the time, I do. I get through it. My philosophy in a lot is once you sleep on something, get up the next day, and it the sting of it isn't as different. Um, I think one of the I mean, I'll be honest. I'm trying to make myself think of a time where someone could have, did something different. And there probably are many. You notice the more I talk, things come up. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the number one thing I would think about is that somewhere the church community um, needs to figure out how they're going to reconcile what's being taught versus how they're going to reconcile the conflict and the irony sometimes of what's being taught through the tenets and what some people in their pews and in
Mm-hmm.
their pulpits
Mm-hmm.
are living. Because it's funny, I would, early on, I was struggling with homosexuality. There was a struggle, and I started changing that terminology. And I mean, in that time, I was struggling in my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I need the church world to figure out how they're going to embrace the fact that it's in the church. And I'm not saying that it in the ministries that don't believe this is right and they preach against it and you know um there is a mental health impact
Mm-hmm.
on that, from as something some people say it's not minimal, to where you think you're going to spend eternity, to the thing of, unfortunately, somebody will preach over the pulpit this that, and then after service,
Mm-hmm.
and that is in, I'm going to get in trouble, that's in the Masons,
Mm.
that's in the mosque, that's in fraternity. Oh, that's a whole nother subject. That's in fraternities where, there's certain there's a couple of fraternities where, um, there's one or two left that, it's still frowned upon. Hmm. Them brothers stroll,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just leave that right there.
Mm. That, well,
But
okay.
I need I needed the church to do better, and this isn't an indictment. I'm answering your question. Um, and I also, and I've never been this sexuality practitioner of pansexual, and no disrespect to anybody that is, just, I'm a traditionalist. Um, but we I don't know how we got on this church thing, but it goes back to my thinking of what Christ would say if he saw that man down there crying.
Mm.
His first inquiry isn't going to be into his bedroom.
Right.
It's going to be into what is hurting him and how he could help resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going forward, when we talk about allyship, part of that notion is you're an ally with me in my face. But if you left here right now, I'm just using this as an
Mm-hmm.
example, and you went home and E said something about um that gay ass, whatever, or something, does the allyship show up privately? And so I think going forward, I need brothers like, they need to be a Carlos. um People need to speak up around all inequities,
Mm-hmm.
not just, and I know we're talking about me, but the macro of my community is part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all inequities need to be spoken upon. Um, right now, I just, what you call it, Marv
Mm.
from 98.1,
Oh
Marvin
yeah.
Mill.
Mm-hmm.
There's been this joke about he wants to do a collaborative event where we date Jimmy,
Oh.
uh,
Oh, why?
unless it's on location in
Mm.
Brooklyn.
Sounds like that's what's gonna
But
happen.
nah, right now, like, if anybody, no, I'm messing.
Mhm.
I'm right now. I just, speak up when you hear about inequities. I need my community to also give space to parents that don't know how, and don't have the capacity, maybe their own trauma, maybe some of these hetero. There was a video when we started saying hetero like that. Some of these heterosexual appearing couples might be dealing with their own stuff. They succumb to living up to the expectations of people, got married. And let me say this to you too, for brothers that may be dibbling and dabbling. One, take care of yourself and use protection. And two, if you are in a, I'm going to say something after this. If you're in a committed relationship, be healthy and be safe. But in not just the Black community, but I said to Tito the other day that I can only speak to, I can't talk about any indiscrepancies in the white community because that ain't my, I don't know. A lot of the DL factor with brothers is because they don't feel that they could talk to their partner. Now, if you active and you get ready getting committed with a woman, tell her early. And you know, I know it's hard, but it's like, you know, sisters want brothers to come and be their authentic self. And if one of those components are that they abide what, and now this ain't permission. If you're with the woman, it's just for me. You be with the woman. There's a school of thought, oh, if I'm bi and if I'm with a woman and I have sex with a man, that's not cheating. I don't ascribe to that. And so, you know, I your question was how could people show up? I'm saying how folks can show up now is where you can be as safe as possible, where you can be safe. And just do your best not to hurt other people, either health, physically, or emotionally, because keeping a secret like that, and I've seen it play out many times, and that is devastating. And if there's children involved and whatnot, again, I'm saying be your authentic self with the understanding that you're afraid, or people are afraid to be their authentic self for everything that I named about what I'm going through. So we got to have that balance. But I think the more we have conversations like this, people can peer in and see, you know, a different side of Jimmy and understand that, you know, being gay doesn't mean that I'm trying to turn you out, or I got an agenda and I'm trying to turn everybody out, or everybody got to be gay. Nah, I just want to be able to love who I want to love God, live in my hood, and be a Black man. Simple as that.
I think that is a perfect place to wrap. I mean, what else could we say after that?
Only thing is, I appreciate you because I don't watch. I have never. I'm not going to lie. No, I don't ever think I've watched a full. I'm not lying. In 4 years, I have never watched a full episode of Me. I'm going to watch this one because there was a couple of moments in here where I had some in real time epiphanies. Before we go though, I want to troll and see what Carlos said. Lord Jesus,
you keep putting him on the spot, but I bet you there's other good comments in here too.
Oh God, I love my mother.
Oh, okay.
She's my number one fan.
Oh,
Pastor Marion, without judging, yes, ma'am. The church has been commanded to love like Jesus.
Oh wait, where are we looking? I'm all down at the bottom.
Them brothers strong.
I was like, oh, okay, all right, that could be going. Okay,
I'm going to behave.
No, wait. Are there any? Oh, okay, you making? I thought you were closing out.
There aren't any questions. I hope the hood Black men can do the same. James, overlooked word of summer. No questions. We'll take if anybody has any questions. We'll take a couple of questions. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with you in a couple of seconds. So
I didn't know we were going back. I'm over here leaning all in.
We were looking at the comments, and so I appreciate a lot of the love. You know, I said to I often say to my mother, "Ma, I know you don't agree with this lifestyle, and you know some of the people of faith that are on here." But as Pastor Marion said, like, you know, we're commanded to love, and you know, it's there's a lot of things that I think, however we are judged or filtered to where we're going to spend eternity. I think in the Judeo-Christian of how I was raised, you know, to the big TV coming on showing your life or whatever, there's a lot of things that some people think are going to disqualify folks from going to heaven. And some of that stuff, God's going to be like, did you love people?
Right.
Did you love humanity?
Mm-hmm.
Did you help people? Did you feed my sheep? And did you tell people that I love them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's not taking away a lot of what we would, you know, what I was taught and whatnot, but the things of God are not without a period of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
You're Martin Luther, you're Calvin. A lot of what we believe now was not believed before Calvin wrote what he wrote and Martin Luther wrote what he wrote back in, you know, the early Christianity days. So I'm not saying that somebody's going to write that Christianity's got to, or Christians have to, you know, embrace homosexuality or, you know, whatever. But the Bible says, work out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. Preach and teach Jesus and let the Holy Ghost do the rest. That's just where I am. I'm getting to, and there's pastors on. I love you too, Pastor Naraki. Carlos said something. If I had a video intro that smooth, you'd be able to tell me. I love Carlos. Wow, mental health. On my mental health journey. Not a lot in this journey outside of the fact that upon coming out and him and I conversing about anything, like just like he called randomly tonight, you know what I mean, and just, you know, checked in. He said he's gonna have his popcorn and stuff. I didn't make it too after dark, Carlos. That's later. We might do that with you. But no, this was really good. This was really good. It was therapeutic for me. And I haven't done this since the Java with Jimmy Brand. And so hopefully folks, you know, got a little bit of what makes me tick. There's so much more, but those 4 elements are a huge part of who I am.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for inviting me into your space and your experience and allowing me to have this conversation with you. You know, you referenced Carlos a couple times. I referenced him when he called. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do Jimmy justice. Oh my goodness! So I just appreciate you.
Carlos is an all around, like, he need to go on life coaching.
But I appreciate you for making the space for me to be able to have this conversation with you and feeling like I could hold the space properly and with care.
You did. So. You did. We, you know, when I took that week off last week between the team and whatnot, people were talking about I need to be more open to co-host when I need to take break. And now Real Boston Media just told me I need to take a week off every quarter.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, but that was the longest I've ever been off. And I was like, oh, they're going to come back. But they are back. All 43 people that are in here right now.
There you go. Oh, what's that comment? Okay.
Oh, that's right. Naraki said that my son is a part of the community and thought that when he came out to me that I was going to kick him out the house. I said, you are my son. I may not agree with your lifestyle, but I love you, and that will never change. Oh, Latoya, Gail, Simone Nicole, you were fantastic. Hey, Latoya.
Thank you, Toya.
Ma said my mother. You both did a phenomenal job. Thank you, Miss Teresa. Monica Hall Porter, the sister. My goodness, what a right on time work. You know she don't play. Jasmine Sullivan. You know what? I'm getting off it. This is when I get in trouble. I go into the comments and it's another 20 minutes, Jesus. But no, this was good. This was good. So there we go. We ain't supposed to be looking in the TV.
I know you said not to do that. That's why you're supposed to have it drop down.
I don't know. I don't like the way my mouth looks now.
That's why we weren't supposed to be looking at this. Okay.
We gonna get off of here. You got anything coming up? Anything for TEDx applications
They
for
don't
the
come out
next
until fall.
fall of this year?
I'm sure TEDx will promote all kind of stuff when this stuff happening. Right now,
There's a video floating around, and Eric wanted me to drop it, and me and Courtney was like, nope. That's when Courtney made me turn red and I model on stage.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw that because you was busy running around.
I didn't see it.
And I turned beet red. And Eric was like, "You going to post it?" I was like, "Nope, you can." But keep out for TEDx applications coming out in the fall. I am probably going to apply.
You should,
because putting this in a constructed story manner, I think would be good and would further help.
Absolutely.
Someone that's listening.
Not only help someone who, I think it would be helpful to so many people. It'd be helpful to people who need to be supportive to people we love and care about and have been socialized to be harmful.
Yeah.
Right.
And intention, not intentional, but that doesn't
but
negate the impact.
Right. It doesn't change that. There is a 2024 8-year-old Jimmy. There's a 2024-year-old 18-year-old Jimmy. There's a 2024
36-year-old
right.
Jimmy. Yep.
So I think you should go ahead and apply for that.
I am. TEDx. And let's just keep it clear. I'm applying. There's no guarantee. Excuse me. Applying, and I know it's a rigorous process because they would the TEDx. When y'all hear about TEDx Roxbury, which I know they're going to try to keep it in Roxbury, but y'all about to run out of space. Wasn't RCC packed?
It was, for the most part. Yep.
We're going to wind up being at the convention center soon. What's up to Brother Bernard, Harvard? What's
Rudy.
Harvard's real name? Rudy.
Not what's Harvard's real name.
Brother Harvard and Shelly. Not Shelly, Lord Jesus.
Yeah, Shelly.
Shelly, okay. I need to eat because that's when I know I'm tired, when I start stuttering. All right, we got to get Mother said she got children at home too. Oh Jesus, I know the boy's name. I can see his face because he walked up on me when I didn't speak to him at some event.
Amari.
He's in college,
and not only is he in college, he's getting ready to leave and go finish his last 2 years at North Carolina A&T.
How you feeling about
that? I don't like that at
all.
Oh,
we
yeah, I don't care for this. I don't care for this. I'm supportive, but you
and Eric have done a good job and laid a good foundation, and he's gonna
be okay. He's gonna be okay.
The thing is, who I'm afraid, who you could send out there,
who,
and he would rule the world. Your baby.
Oh, Miles. Well, yes.
I want to interview him one day.
You should. I'm sure he'll have some things to say.
Oh my goodness, I want to hear him and a couple of other young people's perspective on life. That him and my girl Lakeisha Santos' son. They like he could have a show.
They good.
He got a lot of personality.
He surely
does.
Where did he
get it from?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm just so. I have no idea.
I think we got everything. No events. Oh, I got a show tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. we're talking with Rasan Hall about ranked choice voting. He's one of the co-chairs of ranked choice voting, so he'll be with us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then on Wednesday is Waterfront Wednesdays at 9 with the Coalition for a Resistant and Inclusive Waterfront. And then at 9:30 on Wednesday, Mayor Wu will be with us. And we got a lot to check in with her about. And on Thursday, you might be stuck back with me. Just Jimmy on Thursday. For some reason, when I'm on by myself, that's when folks go in. Yes, some cool, but I notice when I'm on by myself, they like, yeah, more of that. I'm like,
they're keeping it cool for company. That's what
they're keeping it cool for company. I think they just like to hear me run my mouth and be opinionated over a cup of coffee. But thank you all. Oh, you got to you got to close it out.
Oh,
you have a conclusion?
Let me look and see if I got it together. Let me see here. All right, y'all. Well, that was it. It's Java with Simone this evening after dark with my guest Jimmy Hills on his own platform. I mean, I don't know. My big takeaway from today is like love the people around us, love the people that we care about in their full authentic selves. Take the time to talk to the people we care about how we can show up for them, how they can show up for us. And I'm not trying to create this us them dichotomy.
No, I don't
really, just how can we show up for each other? How can we show up for our community in all the ways that we show up? That's my takeaway. And also, let's really give props to the people who put on for us, show up for us for decades, doing the work of activism and doing the work of community organizing and whatever have you. Let's make sure that we really love these people a lot.
Really love them and treat them equitably. Chief Mari Angeli Solis. Holla if you want to resolve this.
Okay.
Have a good day, y'all.
All right. Have a good day.
Oops. Mama Gina said she liked it. That's all that counts.